us some major tea on social media about one of the reasons why CP3 is headed to Houston. Please do explain.
You know, this has messed up my whole Wednesday. I was just trying to get my mind right with some Bikram yoga and my body right, and all of a sudden this blows
So I know
up.
you're dehydrated right now.
A little bit. So, because it didn't make sense to me how it all went down. So there has to be more to it, right? So I talked to a bunch of people today, and here's what happened. This is the micro and the macro of this thing. The micro is that Chris Paul, along with other players on the team, started to lose faith in Doc Rivers because they felt as if he treated Austin Rivers differently than he treated the other guys. And they also felt that Austin came in and felt a little entitled because his dad was the head coach and the president of basketball ops. He wasn't going nowhere. He was good. Everyone else should fall in line, right? So he would say things to other guys on the team when they made mistakes or whatever, but he wouldn't respond to Austin in the same manner about similar transgressions. That's how the players feel. Now, it's not that Doc didn't yell at Austin, but he didn't treat the players felt he didn't treat him the way he treated the other guys. All right?
Now, in fairness, though, given the dynamic in the situation where they just bound to project that anyway, whether it's reality or perception.
Correct. It's a very good possibility. So if you ask Doc Rivers, he's like, no, I treated him all the same, or I actually was on my son worse. But if you're the other guy, you're not part of the family, you don't feel that way. But then the real tipping point for Chris Paul, where he just completely lost trust and faith in Doc Rivers, was this proposed trade from the Knicks to send Carmelo Anthony and Sasha Vujacic to LA in exchange for Jamal Crawford, Paul Pierce, and Austin Rivers. Now, I was told that the Knicks gave the Clippers a deadline, like 3 days. Get back to us.
3 seconds to say yes.
I know.
Correct, right? But Doc didn't do that. Now, granted, let's say that Doc tried to play hardball with the Knicks because they knew Carmelo was in a situation where they had to get rid of him. He's like, nah, we can get more for that. We're going to wait him out. We're going to put the pressure on him. He didn't get back to him within the deadline, according to the people I talked to. And then when he did, Knicks were like, nah, it's off the table. We're not going to go there. So Chris was just like, man, he felt as if Doc cared more about his son than he did about making the team better. And a guy like Chris Paul, who is as competitive as anyone I've ever met in professional sports, who wants to win a championship, he can't live like that.
So Jerry West specializes in making organizations better. So he reportedly, many have said that he was not in this meeting. He was not in the room with Chris Paul.
Just Lawrence Frank and Doc Rivers.
David Aldridge and others have reported that the Clippers, they wouldn't give the 5th year on the max to Chris Paul. So this looks like Chris Paul just decided to take his ball and go to Houston. But how much of this is the Clippers, specifically Jerry West, saying, you know what, we're good? Because all things considered with this trade, they made out as best as possible under the circumstances. How much of this is mutual, since that's the buzzword of the day, where the Clippers are like, you know what, we want you here, but on our terms?
All the people I spoke to today, no one brought up that 5th-year option. Okay, now granted, I don't have the same sources some other people talk to. But what doesn't make sense to me, you're willing to give them 4 for 150, but not an additional to get to 200. Really? All the things that this guy's done for your organization in the 6 years he was there, as you guys were talking about earlier, he gave them relevancy. Blake Griffin gave them splash and highlights in a late West Coast game that the East Coast would stay up and watch. Chris Paul put them in the playoffs. Chris Paul had them on the verge of going to the Western Conference Finals up 3-1 against Houston a couple years ago. So he's done all that for your organization, and you really worried? A guy who spent $2 billion to buy the team is worried about another $50 million in 1 year. It doesn't make sense. But if that's the case, that's even more reason Chris, I'm out.
So Chris and Blake, and you know better than us, don't always see eye to eye.
No.
DeAndre, Chandler Parsons' tweet alluded to this. They locked him in a room to get him to stay, and then just got dangled in trade offers. So, the people that are left behind now, what's going to be? Where do the Clippers go from here at this point? With particularly Blake, we were debating, not arguing. We were discussing whether or not it would be prudent for them to actually keep Blake or let him walk. Where do they go from here with those two guys?
I think if I'm the Clippers and you make this move to get 7 players and a draft pick for Chris Paul, then I would do some type of sign and trade you guys mentioned to send Blake Griffin to Oklahoma City or wherever and just redo it. Just do the whole thing over. If you want to keep DeAndre Jordan, fine. Right? But if you're going to get rid of Chris Paul, then go get something else to build for the future. And right now, those 7 players they got in return, that's not really your core to building a future. Maybe you have to move Blake Griffin to get something else because the ship has passed. They didn't make it happen. They should have been there a couple years ago. It didn't work out, but now you got to move on.
How brilliant. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, I just go ahead.
No, I was just going to say how brilliant did Chris Paul play this from a cap standpoint because, again, very few of us thought he'd walk away from that money.
And I hope,
I
hope this doesn't get lost in all the drama that led to Chris leaving, how brilliantly he played this, all right? So he opts in, still gets $24 million this year. Next summer, he's in the exact same position to sign 4 years for $150 to go somewhere else or 5 years for $200 million to stay there. But beyond that, it gives him a year to find out if he can actually play with James Harden effectively and pursue a title. You think it's going to work. We don't know for sure until we find out. At the end of next season, he will know for certain. And it gives him more flexibility to join up with LeBron.
I'll say the banana boat. Banana boat.
Because here's the deal. If he signed the 5-year deal with the Clippers or did a sign and trade at the end of the Rockets, the only two places LeBron could join him, either L.A. or Houston. Now, he and LeBron go anywhere they want. Anywhere they want.
And Wade will be done.
Yep, and Melo will be a year out, and maybe that buyout happens then.
See what I'm saying?
Real quick, I'm going to be messy. So did you see what Austin Rivers tweeted after this is –
Clap back.
This might be to you, Mike. I don't know.
It probably is.
These false rumors are comedy, so fictional. It's actually amusing. People will say or do anything to get attention. A lot of clowns out there. Mike, he calling you a clown.
He didn't say my name, so he ain't talking to me.
He subtweeted you,
He didn't say my name, so he ain't talking to me.
I'm saying he subtweet. Just say it.
What's he supposed to say? He looks kind of bad right now.
Right.
Right? So I would try to save face, too.
You look great as always, hosting SportsCenter right
7
after us.
o'clock, top of the hour right
so
here.
you just going to talk to yourself? Like, how's that work? I mean, you scooping
Well, you
today like you don't need to talk to anybody.
So I taped the talk back with me earlier.
Okay,
We'll
good.
see how it plays out.
Just talk to it.
That makes a lot of sense.